Welcome to the show, guys. Joseph Robert Camo, the Fantasy Football Council. We are talking about starts and sits for Fantasy Football Week 15. Championship week for a lot of people, playoff week for others. This is the week, guys, that's going to make or break your year because a lot of people facing elimination, and that's not cool. You don't want to lose. You want to actually win. You want to dominate. I got all the optimal players here at each position. I'll tell you the guys I like to start and sit for this very crucial Week 15. Now, I watched Thursday Night Football yesterday, and I've got Justin Herbert, and if you got 16 rounds, you're sitting pretty here with at least 26 points from Uncle Justin Herbert this week. I'm very proud to say that I got him in the 5th round, and I know you guys got him for an immense deal this year while the Chiefs were drafting, Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson screwing a lot of fantasy teams last week. So at the end of the day, guys, it's about selecting the right quarterback and having a good feel, and that's what 16 rounds gives you, and that's going to be launching in a few months. Again, for 2022, we're almost there, but this week we want to focus on starts and sits. Now, I do have a giveaway, or a couple giveaways from Pristine Auction, including this signed DeAndre Hopkins jersey. Mind you, he screwed a lot of fantasy teams this year, but it doesn't matter because I've also got an Eckler signed helmet as well. To enter, guys, pristineauction.com. Use promo code SWAGLINE. Enter for these draws, guys. It's free to enter. pristineauction.com. When you sign up, use promo code SWAGLINE. You're entered for all draws moving forward for this signed jersey, helmets, and other ongoing swag. Okay, guys? pristineauction.com. Use promo code SWAGLINE. Go create an account. You're automatically entered, all right? So go do that. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe and join the Telegram group. I've got a brand new group where you can chat with me, guys. Listen, if you're in the car, if you're listening in the car, wherever you're listening to, pull over, download the app Telegram. It's got the blue logo on it with it's like a paper airplane thing on it. Telegram and follow, guys. There's a link here below. Just follow Fantasy Football Council. I should be able to be searchable there. If not, there's a link here on YouTube. Join the community, chat direct, chat during games, inside information, everything there, guys. Link here below, all right? There's that. All right, so let's get into this. If you're new, again, subscribe. It really helps the channel. Just click that thumbs up, okay, guys? And comment below. Let me know if you made the playoffs. Let's make this interactive. All right, quarterback position. Let's talk about the guys that are worth starting and the guys that have the tougher matchups, okay? When you're talking guys that have good matchups, be careful because there's a lot of guys that have tougher matchups that you probably want to start over the guys that have good matchups. So just be careful, guys. Make sure you guys start and sit the right person, okay, guys? So Jalen Hurts, he's got a great matchup this week. Philly versus Washington. I like him. Kirk Cousins, great matchup, although I don't really trust him as much. He's playing Chicago, but again, he's got he's got Jefferson. He's been connecting with him. He should have good points, good matchup. So Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, great matchups. Taysom Hill coming off a 26-pointer. Good. He's been looking good, but again, a good matchup as well. Tampa Bay, right? Pass defense. Ben Roethlisberger, very hard to trust, coming off a big week. Very easy matchup versus Tennessee. Make sure you start him. Matt Ryan, good matchup. Aaron Rodgers, also great matchup. And Tom Brady versus the Saints, great matchup. All guys, a great matchup. All startable, okay? The only one I'm a little suspect about here, obviously, is Big Ben, Matt Ryan, and Kirk Cousins. But, I mean, Jalen Hurts, I feel pretty good with. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, I feel pretty solid with. All good matchups. Guys that have it in tough, Carson Wentz versus New England. He's got it in tough. He's, I believe, playing the Saturday game. Cam Newton, Jared Goff, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, Lamar Jackson, if he plays, Ed Russell Wilson, all have it in tough this week. Now, if you have Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, would you sit them? Probably not, right? Unless you have a better option. But just a warning as you're going into championship playoffs that Josh Allen does have it in tough against Carolina's secondary. Carson Wentz does have it in tough. Cam Newton does have it in tough. Matt Stafford, 9th hardest matchup versus position. They do have it in tough. I mean, am I saying, again, bench these guys? No. Am I saying sit these guys? No. But you have to be aware that if you do have other options, it might be viable to put in a better option with a better matchup as the guys I mentioned. So if you debating between, let's say, if you have Brady and Stafford on your team, maybe it's better to start Brady based on matchup, or maybe you just feel like Stafford's going to be the guy that's going to continue to perform, right? So again, it's up to you guys to make those decisions. I'm just giving you the facts. I'm just giving you the data here based on position. Joe Burrow, 4th hardest matchup versus position. Jared Goff, 3rd hardest matchup versus position. Russell Wilson, 6th hardest matchup versus position, okay? Kyler Murray, Ryan Tannehill, Mac Jones, Dak Prescott, all mid-range matchups, okay? Go back, listen again if you need to. I'm just going based on optimal matchups versus position, okay? Now, moving on to the running back position. In here, you want to start your volume getters. You should know who your workhorse running backs are. Now, there's going to be some questions in regards to guys like James Robinson with the new coach, with the interim coach there, with Mayer gone, right? James Robinson, I'm going to go with starting him this week simply because he's got a chip on his shoulder and he's got a phenomenal matchup. Okay, I'm going to be starting him. Again, looking at him, second easiest matchup versus position, $5,400 on DraftKings. He's got an easy matchup, right? And he's got to eat. He's got to do something. And the new coach is going to want to probably display that. So James Robinson, I'm going to go ahead and start him this week. I'm rolling the dice on that. James Conner, great matchup. So I'm going over some other guys with great matchups this week you should be aware of. Ezekiel Elliott, great matchup versus position coming off some really crappy weeks, I know, but he does have a good matchup this week, very favorable. Elijah Mitchell, check his injury, but if he plays, good matchup, okay? Dalvin Cook, good matchup this week versus Chicago. Antonio Gibson coming off a crappy week, relatively easy matchup. Cordell Patterson, 12th easiest matchup versus position, relatively easy matchup. Sony Michel, good matchup as well, okay? Sony Michel, Rams versus Seattle, good matchup. So again, James Conner, James Robinson, Sony Michel, Dalvin Cook, David Montgomery, also a good matchup. Elijah Mitchell, like I said, to recap some of the guys that got a good matchup, including Cordell Patterson. Just so you're aware, those are the guys, a good matchup. Uncle Lenny, tough matchups. Uncle Lenny coming off some huge weeks, consistent every week, does have it in tough against New Orleans rush defense. Toughest matchup versus position theoretically, but do you bench Leonard Fournette? Probably not, definitely not, especially in year long. But be aware, he does have it in tough. Najee Harris got in tough versus Tennessee. Do you sit Najee Harris? Absolutely not. You start Najee Harris versus Tennessee, but be aware, he's got it in tough. Okay? Saquon Barkley, am I starting him? Yes, I am, but he's got it in tough versus Dallas's rush defense. Alvin Kamara also got it in tough this week. Fourth hardest matchup versus position on paper versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers rush defense. Am I sitting Alvin Kamara? Absolutely not, okay? Aaron Jones got in tough with A.J. Dillon. Also a tough matchup. Devontae Freeman, who's been pretty decent here down the stretch here. Baltimore versus Green Bay, 10th hardest matchup versus position. And Jonathan Taylor, 11th hardest matchup versus position. Do you sit Jonathan Taylor? Absolutely not. You start him. But he doesn't have the easiest matchup there versus New England. Now, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, do you start Javonte Williams? Unless you have another running back like a Jonathan Taylor or something where you got to start over this guy, you absolutely start Javonte Williams. Now, Melvin Gordon is a thorn in the side. Melvin Gordon should be shipped off. Javonte Williams can handle that load. Unfortunately, they are going by a committee. I would definitely start Javonte Williams this week if you are an owner, okay? That's the running backs. Go back and listen again if you need to get all that information again based on starts and sits, okay? Now, let's talk about wide receiver. This is where you could take some risk. There's so much volatility at this position. Some guys are up, some guys are down, but then there's a consistent guy. So make sure you guys plug in those consistent guys, especially in championship week. For example, Deontay Johnson, great matchup versus position, second easiest versus position. And Deontay Johnson is a guy that has been consistent every single week. There's no reason to sit him. You start him, and he's got a phenomenal matchup. Darnell Mooney, coming off some terrible weeks, was consistent throughout the season for the most part. Do you start Darnell Mooney? I'm going to say yes. He's got a favorable matchup this week versus Minnesota, due for another big game. Darnell Mooney, theoretically, one of the easiest matchups versus position this week. Devonte Smith, very inconsistent, but does have a favorable matchup. Like I said, Hurts. Devonte Smith, great matchup versus Washington. I'm going to go ahead and start Devonte Smith if you have him. Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, both very startable, a very favorable matchup versus Chicago. Start both if you have them. Unless you have a better wide receiver than KJ Osborne, he should get the volume as long as Thielen is still sidelined. Check the injuries before the game start, okay? Other guys that have a good matchup, Debo Samuel, who's been red hot all season. Good matchup for him versus Atlanta, which should be a shootout of a game. So I would definitely consider starting Debo Samuel. Ayuk, he's been consistent the past couple weeks as well. If you got Ayuk, past couple games, pretty safe. 19 points the last time he played, 9 points the time before. Brandon Ayuk, definitely startable if you have him, but expect a boom or bust type of game out of him. Or safe or bust, I should say. Safe or bust. Chris Godwin, definitely start him. He's been consistent. Mike Evans, both those guys, bit of a coin toss in regards to who gets the volume week in, week out. Chris Godwin seems to be the go-to guy in regards to volume, but we're going to have to see. Both of them have a great matchup. Julio Jones coming off some really crappy weeks, 7 points, 8 points, that type of thing. I would start Julio Jones if you have him, if you're desperate. He does have a favorable matchup, but I personally would start someone else if I had a better wide receiver. Don't really trust him. Don't see a major upside, but you never know. Could be due for a big touchdown, right? could inflate his numbers, could get some receptions, and he's up to a 20-point game. Relatively easy. Wide receivers here for the Dallas Cowboys. All great matchups here, but again, it's a coin toss in regards to who gets the volume, who gets the most amount of points. CeeDee Lamb should theoretically get you a 15-point game. Same with Amari Cooper. That's kind of what they've been trending. Also here, you want to also consider Amon-Ra St. Brown as a wild card here who's been heating up and had a mini breakout here down the stretch. Amon-Ra St. Brown got a relatively easy matchup versus Arizona secondary, okay? Guys that have it in tough, those guys are the easy ones. But again, I'm starting Deontay Johnson. I've got some good wide receivers. I'm going to start Hunter Renfrow, who's been consistent as they come for me. I'm feeling good with the Renfrow Deontay Johnson duo, which has been carrying me through the season. Been pretty amazing. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson both got it in tough this week versus Buffalo. Terry McLaurin got it in tough versus Philly. Cole Beasley, Stephon Diggs got it in tough versus Carolina. Do you sit Stephon Diggs? Absolutely not. You play him. Big questions about Michael Pittman. He does have the 5th hardest matchup versus position, just so you're aware of that. But he theoretically is the wide receiver 1 still. So I'm going to go ahead and still start Michael Pittman if I have him. He had a 17-point last time outing, but he does have it in tough. Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, I'm going to go ahead and start him. Odell, I don't really trust, but could get that touchdown due to the fact that the top corners are covering Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, all got a tough matchup, but how do you sit Cooper Kupp? You don't. 7th hardest matchup versus position, just to be aware. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, both have a tough matchup this week. Both startable if you've got them. Just be aware of that. They do have a tough matchup, just so you're aware. DK Metcalf, also tough matchup this week, and the Seattle wide receivers. All right, guys? A lot of people ask about A.J. Green. Do you trust him? Do you start him? In regards to A.J. Green, he could be safe, but especially with DeAndre Hopkins out. So I would definitely start A.J. Green. He's got a mid-range matchup, 20 points last week. Him, Kirk, both safe starts this week. Green should step up, again, with DeAndre Hopkins being out. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. If you got A.J. Green, he's a go, especially in these fantasy football playoffs, okay? Volume should be there with Hopkins being sidelined. Moving into tight ends, and you saw Kelsey rip it up on Thursday Night Football. Tight ends can get it done, potentially. They're not Travis Kelsey, but there is some guys that could have some big weeks, including Mark Andrews, coming off a huge 32-point week last time he played. Does have the 11th hardest matchup versus position, so it's not an easy matchup, but he is a stud. Dallas Goedert, definitely worth a start, mid-range matchup. Mike Gesicki, easy matchup for Gesicki, definitely worth a start. Noah Fant's been safe, boring at best, but he does have an easy matchup. George Kittle coming off some hot weeks, and he's got a relatively mid-range matchup, leaning a little bit towards the easier side versus Atlanta in what could be, like I said, a shootout. Coming off some big weeks, George Kittle, definite start. Kyle Pitts and Rob Gronkowski got tough matchups, but I would definitely start both those guys. Kyle Pitts has not been safe at all this year. You could probably get a 10-point game out of him. Again, he does have a tough matchup versus tight ends. San Fran does play tight ends tougher. I'd rather start a Gronkowski over him. If you don't have a better option, Kyle Pitts is a go, but I would definitely start him if you don't have a better option. Pat Freiermuth, also a tough matchup versus position versus Tennessee. Could get a touchdown, could give you that 10-point floor. Pat Freiermuth, startable, but does have it in tough. So again, Gronkowski, Kyle Pitts, Pat Freiermuth have it in tough at the tight end position. Tyler Conklin, also tough matchup. Cole Clement, tough matchup, right? CJ Uzomah, 2nd hardest matchup versus position versus Denver. Be aware of that if you are starting Uzomah, okay? And Jack Doyle, I mean, he's got a tough matchup. I don't really trust him. Those are the guys. I mean, with tight end at this point in the game, guys, you should know who your starting tight ends are and the guys that are going to perform. I named the guys that I like, and you guys should start your starting tight ends that have been consistent for you throughout the season. Don't take any big gambling risks at tight end unless you're sure it's going to pay off. Defenses to stream if you need one. Houston versus Jacksonville, 49ers versus Atlanta, Buffalo Bills versus Carolina, Jacksonville versus Houston. So either one of these defenses could step up against the opposing offense. Dolphins versus the Jets is an interesting stream this year. Now, if you do have a secure defense you've been trusting all season that gets you the 10, 15 points a week, maybe start those guys, but these are options that have optimal matchups for you, okay? Again, the Dolphins, Vikings versus Chicago, Green Bay Packers versus Baltimore, Cardinals versus Detroit, and Bengals versus Denver. All decent options. I don't really like the Bengals versus Denver one, but I do like the Cardinals versus Detroit. I do like the Dolphins versus the Jets. And I also I don't mind the Vikings versus Chicago as an option to stream. So again, big risks here, but optimal matchups for the defenses I just mentioned. All right, guys? That's it. This is championship week, guys. This is what it all comes down to. Make sure you start and sit the right person. Go with your gut feeling if you need to, but go back and look at consistency with your players. Have they been consistent? Do I want to start them this week? And make that executive decision. It's up to you guys, all right? Good luck. Playoff time, championship time for some leagues, depending on how your league is structured. Good luck. Go dominate. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and follow that Telegram group. Join the conversation, guys. I'm out. Have yourself a great weekend. Talk soon.